It's not taking your job because it's really good. It's taking your job because your job was meaningless to begin with. Because the fact of the matter is, the only things that AI is actually able to take over are meaningless tasks that never really mattered to begin with.
You know, I'm probably one of the people who is most afraid of where AI is going to take humanity, society, and civilization, but there's a few videos that I'm going to be reacting to today that kind of not really lifted my spirits, but it really set things in a different tone, and I do appreciate that. I always like hearing different opinions on where humanity and the job market is headed because of AI, and sometimes people actually believe that things aren't really going to change much at all, which I find to be shocking, but nonetheless, some people think that. So we're going to discuss it in today's video and dive straight into today's content.
Hello and good morning. I actually am going to talk about AI in this video because I have been seeing this interesting trend, phenomenon, collection of trends really that I think is relevant for all of us who, you know, are just curious about how AI is going to impact kind of the future of industry. So, as you guys know, right, I was a math major. I love math, and I've always found it fascinating how many unsolved problems there are in mathematics. Like, there's just so many. Like, if you've ever done, you know, math Olympiads at, you know, a higher level, or even taken higher level math classes, like, there are just so many unproven theories and conjectures. It's just kind of interesting to see this recent trend where people just point AI, they point large language models to some of these unsolved problems and essentially say, go solve it. The models have become increasingly good at it. Like, I've seen prompts of, like, you know, go take this list of unsolved math problems, find one that you think you could solve or that you think you could disprove with a single counterexample. And we're seeing really high success with these models being able to do that and, like, make progress in this field that has not seen a lot of these problems get solved in, like, decades. It's been pretty interesting. But like any other intelligence, like human intelligence, right? Like, just sheer intelligence, sheer brain power, compute ability is not directly translatable to economic viability. Like, this is something we know to be true for humans. And the same is true for these models, right? Like, just because a model is able to go solve an unsolved math problem, that doesn't mean that it's going to be able to turn that into money or solve problems that are lucrative or, you know, create capital of some kind. Obviously, there has been a lot of thinking since mainstream adoption of AI that AI is going to take people's jobs. Anthropic's in-house economist actually published a paper on this recently, basically arguing that that's not happening, right? Like, the US labor market is still really robust. I think unemployment's at like 4-ish%. And AI to this day is still very skill biased, is the term that I believe he uses, and labor augmenting. And again, he's not saying really anything new. It's really just that AI benefits people who are already specialized, people that are already subject matter experts. Of course, the average person can see baseline productivity improvement with the use of AI, but it has not really moved the needle on jobs in a way that we can really see in our economy. Part of that is because of the fact that AI still so much needs humans. You know, I argue with people on this quite a bit because I firmly believe that the role of the human subject matter expert will just continue to grow in importance. I don't think this technology is anywhere near the ability to abstract that out. We just don't have a good, scalable, replicable way to actually, like, evaluate these kinds of models without a very manual, human-intensive, and involved evaluation process. And I just don't see that changing yet, at least for the near term. The sheer jaggedness of artificial intelligence, a tool that can disprove the Jacobian conjecture. And for math geeks, you know the significance of that. Can't do a ton of other basic things. A lot of our get to the last mile of value in a lot of our, specialized work. I wonder how that will change over time, whether that can change over time.
Well, it's pretty obvious, though, at the very least, that with AI, it's giving people who already have knowledge even more tools that can be good for people who are already in these positions, but people who don't have that type of education might not utilize the tools in the same way, or maybe they will. I don't know. Maybe I'm being too pessimistic about it. This is another individual who actually has interesting insights on what he believes the real reason why AI is taking any jobs at all.
AI is not taking your job because it's really good. It's taking your job because your job was meaningless to begin with. Because the fact of the matter is the only things that AI is actually able to take over are meaningless tasks that never really mattered to begin with. And what's so stupid and fucked up about this whole thing is that that's still going to destroy the economy. Because the thing that a lot of corporations and capitalists and billionaires have all forgotten is that all of society, basically since the mid-20th century, has worked on a social contract and an agreement to ignore the lie. And the lie that we're ignoring is the fact that most white-collar jobs are meaningless. And of course, we all learned this during COVID, because in COVID, we had a certain percentage of jobs that were considered essential, that were essential workers that we needed to keep society running. Food service, agriculture, medical, that's about it. Everything else was able to be paused while we figured out how the pandemic was going to work, or was made completely remote. Why? Because the job was meaningless to begin with, because the job wasn't essential, because none of these jobs are actually essential. You sitting at your computer answering emails and filling out spreadsheets has never been essential. And you can ask anybody who's worked in corporate America for the last 50 years about this, and they will all tell you the same thing, which is they probably actually do actual work 2 hours out of their day. Maybe. And the thing is, this wasn't actually a secret. Like, the bosses knew, because they were in your position. They've done your job and got through the corporate hierarchy and then went to a place where they didn't have to do that job anymore. Essentially a place where they had to do even less work. But we were all fine with these lies because this was what sustained society. This is what sustained the economy for 50 years. It was just people doing meaningless work and getting paid for it, and then they would take their paychecks and use it to buy products, use it to buy entertainment, use it to buy stuff. And the more stuff we bought, the more rich people at the top became. And the more rich people at the top became, the more they would have to create fake jobs for us to do so that we would get money so that we could give our money to them. But what's happened in the last few decades is that the corporations and the billionaires have gotten a lot more greedy. And they do not like the step where they have to give us money for stuff that is meaningless in order for us to have money to then spend on their stuff. They're trying to cut out the middleman, and thus they invent AI. Why? Not because it's actually useful, but because it's very useful at doing things that aren't useful. Because somewhere along the line, they forgot that these things aren't actually useful. Because they got embedded so much into society that they decided that the spreadsheets and the emails and everything, that needs to still happen, right? Because it's been happening for the last 50 years, clearly it still needs to happen. But it doesn't need to happen, because it never needed to happen. Because all of this is meaningless. All of this is pointless. There is nothing you are doing in your white-collar job that matters to society as a whole. And that is why they're going to automate it. And that is why they're going to make AI do your job. Because it doesn't matter at the end of the day. And they wouldn't ever actually have AI do stuff that actually matters, because they also know that AI is useless at anything that actually matters. So AI is going to take all the bullshit jobs that don't matter and don't actually contribute to society, and they're going to maintain doing them because we decided that those jobs still need to happen, even though they don't actually need to happen. And then the people who actually did those jobs that didn't need to happen, but they did need the money so that they could exist in society, they're not going to have money anymore, which means that they're not going to be able to buy stuff anymore, which means that all these corporations that are investing really heavily in AI are going to crumble because the social contract has been broken, because we don't actually have jobs that matter.
Actually, what he's saying is very true. You think at AI companies, and it is starting to look a little bit like a bubble, and the bubble is slowly popping. A lot of these companies that were on a run the past few years have slowed down substantially, and some have actually lost a decent amount of value. And he's totally right about the essential jobs. We saw that during the pandemic. There were some jobs that were deemed essential, and a lot of white-collar jobs, work-from-home jobs, just simply were not. So, if you're not making stuff for yourself, if you're not creating something, or if you're not if you're not working a job that serves other people in a meaningful way, then yes, your job actually is kind of useless. And that maybe is ultimately the purpose of AI, is to take away those jobs. But unfortunately, there's going to be a huge economic effect. So now I'm looking at it, I'm saying, okay, I'm back to the point of thinking this is bad regardless, because the economy will tank a lot and there could be repercussions for that. But who knows? Maybe I'm too much of a doomer in this regard, but maybe I'm looking for some optimism as well with this video. Anyways, guys, leave your thoughts about it down below in the comment section, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.